This is the European edition of Breaking Banks, the world's #1 fintech podcast and radio show. We bring you the European unicorns, startups, founders, regulators, and leaders innovating the rapidly evolving fintech scene today. A truly localized podcast with both English and local language content, with some of the world's most well-known hosts and influencers in the fintech sector globally. Join us every week as we explore what makes the European Union a phenomenal proving ground for many of the fastest growing fintech plays in the world today. Okay, let's roll.
Welcome everyone to Breaking Banks Europe. This is episode 77, Ecosystem Zoom In on Lithuania. So Lithuania, a country of 3 million people, 250 fintechs, and more than 1,000 startups. My name is Meaghan Johnson. I'll be your host for today, and I'm luckily joined by 3 people based in Lithuania, very much involved in the fintech and startup scene, and they're going to share their insights on what makes Lithuania so special and some of the really cool startups and innovation that's coming out of this small Baltic nation. So first off, I'd like to introduce Sarune Smalakyte.
Hello, Meaghan. My name is Sarune Smalakyte. I come from ROCKIT, which is the home for fintech and sustainable innovation companies in Vilnius.
Cool. Thank you and welcome. Zygimantas Zabieta.
Hi, Zygimantas Zabieta. Yes, we have a very interesting composition of names and pronunciation. I'm a CEO of a new venture, Ioon Technologies, e-mobility startup. Also, the long years in e-mobility, in general, ecosystem building, especially the amazing last 3 years spent in blockchain ecosystem building. That was a hell of a ride.
Cool. Thank you. And lastly, Vytautas Černiauskas. Sorry for butchering your last name, but yeah, welcome. Happy
Hi.
to hear what you're up to.
Hi, Vytautas Černiauskas. I am an expert at Startup Division and Civita, and also a co-founder of Contribee, which is also probably technically a fintech startup, since we are working with monetizing creators market, even though we use Stripe, we don't collect the money ourselves. Civita and Startup Division, we work with a lot of startups and startup-based programs, different acceleration and startup support services and other things. I'm also a mentor in different capacities, and I've worked at Uber for 3 years, from the very start of Uber's operations in Lithuania, which I contributed to.
Oh, wow. Cool. So yeah, welcome everyone. I'm really excited because, we were chatting before and you all know each other. And I think this is kind of the youngest Breaking Banks podcast we've had yet. And yeah, I can feel there's, a lot of energy and excitement from everyone. So I'd like to start off with asking, how would each of you describe the Lithuanian startup scene in 2 words? Vytautas, let's start with your 2 words to sum up the startup scene.
It's vibrant, it's growing, and it has a lot of potential. Mm-hmm. We do have one official unicorn in Lithuania, Vinted, and one unofficial, which is even bigger, Testnet, but I believe they have never raised money, external financing, so nobody actually made an independent evaluation, but they're really huge, and there are quite a few unicorns in the making as well, and smaller startups too. And I think that during the last 3 to 5 years, the Lithuanian startup scene has evolved very, very rapidly, and we're going to see a lot of exciting things ahead, particularly in the startup space, that fintech space that we will come very soon.
Okay, super. Okay, so fast growing, vibrant. Zygimantas, what's your perception? What are your few words to summarize the space at present?
Yeah, I would also call it vibrant. But I think that another very important feature that we are young and hungry. I think that it comes with all the past history and how the country evolved from their past to European Union, NATO, and this integration into Western society. And that brought a lot of young people went to Western countries to get educated, and they got back. They got back with knowledge, with the capital, and also they attracted and the companies came here to look for talents, and they found those. We are hardworking people, and I think that what makes us so successful in building startups. Like we don't have siestas because of the weather. It's always dark and rainy, and so we tend to spend long hours working. And I think that mentality of giving 120% for the priorities to your work and job and your future, that makes us so vibrant. And another thing is that we are young, and I think that we are okay to kind of make those amendments with work and life balance. And what happens is that I think we are building the Lithuanian dream, and probably this generation is the generation that the Western world had 60 years ago, where we do earn more than our parents. We create a new world. We are building a new country, and that's very exciting to be a part of. So everyone is willing to enter the startup scene and change their jobs and join this exciting roller coaster.
Cool. And I want to go back to that in a few questions, this kind of Lithuanian dream and kind of this generation of building are you building a new Lithuania? But first I'd like to ask Sarune, how would you describe specifically the fintech scene in Lithuania?
So the words that Zygimantas and Vytautas mentioned totally ring the bell about how the whole ecosystem is. But when I think about fintech ecosystem in general, ambitious front runner maybe would be the first words that come to my head. And there are a few reasons why. When we look back into not so far history of how the whole ecosystem in Lithuania started nearly in 2016, not much further than that, and where we are right now, you could clearly see the ambition, the effort, the willingness, and then the words that Zygimantas used, being hungry for reaching and achieving, and talking about this front running. So this is that we just don't want to build something. We want to create leading technologies. We really want to build governance that for other countries would be like a great example to follow, and the combination, that really shows its results. How the ecosystem companies are growing. We get more investments into the startup community and fintech businesses in general.
Super. And I guess what are some of the benefits in terms of creating, executing, and implementing innovative ideas and changing society to become more tech driven? What are some of the benefits of being a smaller country?
Yeah, I believe the first thing that the small country people know, everybody knows one another, and it's a really great opportunity to network, to get partnerships, and even when we speak about regulated environments and many fintech companies that are visiting Lithuania, they get to meet regulator just by sitting by the same table and then discussing the important matters. That would be so much impossible into the bigger countries, and as well like the politicians are engaged. They try to know the people. They try to learn about specific issues that we have in the market and have this common understanding and know a bit things from the ground. So maybe that's the first thing, and then the guys could follow up.
It's hard to follow up since you mentioned all the all ticked all the boxes pretty much. So yes, I can only concur that it's somewhat easier to agree because there are less moving parts in the decision makers and societies and also the stakeholders, and also access to certain key people. For example, as Sarune mentioned, some of the fintechs that are coming from the, let's say, Western Europe or other regions of the world, and thinking about choosing where to invest or where to set up shop or get a license, etc. They sometimes are really positively surprised when they get first-person access to key people in Lithuania, be it the mayor or the prime minister or the decision makers at the Bank of Lithuania, etc. So the openness and willingness to work with and to attract investments to Lithuania. Also kudos to the Invest Lithuania team. They're doing a really great job working with those companies and potential investors. I think it's this speed of decision making and probably even somewhat less bureaucracy and an ambition that we can, as a small nation, agree between ourselves that this is our focus. Let's now deliver. I think that's a benefit for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think when I look at, some of the leading countries in terms of fintech and digital financial service innovation, it's always the countries that have, proactive, forward-thinking regulators. So we think, Singapore, the UK, and then to counter that, I look to Germany, with there's a few pockets of innovation, but on the whole, it's a very undigital society, if you will. And I don't think the BaFin is so forward thinking and pro startup. What are some of the initiatives then from the government that's sort of encouraging startups, helping them out, getting incumbent or traditional banks to open up, making that, first step in a typically highly regulated industry easier for, startup scale up and banks? And I'll open this up to anyone who wants to jump in first.
Maybe I can start. You mentioned about regulated activities. So when we go to one organization in particular, when we speak about Lithuania, so this is the National Bank, and there is a variety of initiatives, but all of them seem to be hitting all the right spots for the companies who are considering building a fintech company. So first of all, for the companies that would like to come and establish their business entity here, they provide a newcomer program, like a one-stop shop where you don't have to go and scout all information yourself, or when it comes to regulatory procedures, they could answer all of the questions. And as mentioned previously, the speed, the first person contact always plays a very important role. As well, the sandboxes they have developed, so from the payments sandbox to blockchain sandbox, just the leading and showing it by example, opening your infrastructure and resources from inside out, not just asking somebody to do something externally. Always show as well, the leading curve that companies are happy to follow.
Yeah, indeed. I think that the most important thing is that the government was willing to learn and change and adapt. So from a lot of discussions with regulators, I know a couple of stories, and one of those was that when Lithuania had their former currency litas before changing it to euro, they invested in a platform that when we switched to euro, they were looking where to adapt it, and actually it was really adaptable for e-money companies to get all the regulations in place. So they changed what they had to accommodate newcomers. Second thing is that when the Brexit referendum happened, there was also a political will. They said, we have a lot of Lithuanians working in London City. We have a lot of bright talents that work in those companies. If we work together and we have contact with them, we talk with them, maybe we can work together to bring their companies to open EU headquarters, EU office in Lithuania. And I think that this, what Sarune said, the banking licenses and all the other support programs that really help. From my personal experience, I was working in Blockchain Center Vilnius, the center which we're building the blockchain ecosystem. What we did, we organized a lot of discussions. We organized 70 events in 8 months. So it was like really paced and a lot of things was happening. So in many of those discussions, we had politicians sitting next to the table in the panels and answering questions and giving their opinions. But more importantly, there were also events where they came to listen for the experts to talk for the startup. So when you go to an event and you see that there is a decision maker sitting in the audience and taking notes, I think that kind of says that you're doing a good job. So I think that also their willingness to learn is also an answer.
And I would also add that during this short period of time, about Sarune said approximately starting from 2016, give it or take it a little bit of time. It's not accidental that we're now doing this podcast about the Lithuanian fintech ecosystem, and that Lithuania constantly ranks as one of the hottest hotspots in Europe, and can also a strong contender in the world as a place where a lot of fintechs get their licenses, where the ease of doing business and overall fintech rankings. It's not accidental that Lithuania is high on those lists, and it's a result of hard and focused work and the clear focus that has been chosen several years ago, and it's thanks to a lot of people in different organizations, and also including the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Economy and Innovation, and also the Bank of Lithuania that Sarune has mentioned before, that has done a lot of hard work in the area of regulation, in clearing out and making the path and to the licensing very, very clear, very structured. You always know how much it will take, what kind of documents you need to prepare, and where to go. And also the sandboxes that have already been mentioned, and all other things. All these measures and all this focus of different institutions within the country to make Lithuania a fintech hub. These are starting to bring results, and we're now seeing the growth of licenses and the growth of startups, both homegrown and coming from abroad, including scale-ups as well.
And here I would also like to comment about the engagement of the community and how active the fintechs themselves are. And usually they speak and announce their voice through associations like Crowdfunding Association, Lithuanian Fintech Association, and others. But they highly engage into not practical decision making, but offering their suggestions, bringing the ideas from the people who work on a daily basis with those routines. And Zygimantas gave us a hint, that he was talking about blockchain, about what it is, about what the crypto world looks like. So when you are entering those unexplored waters, you have a lot of room to learn, and we cannot expect only the government people or the decision makers to know all the answers. So this is where the proactivity of our community as well plays an important role of educating, showing the best practices. What currently we have with crowdfunding, there are new EU regulations coming up, and just helping, taking, for example, Ministry of Finance step by step and trying to know what could be the best use cases for Lithuania and how to get the most out of it when you understand what it's all about and what could be the best benefits.
That's super interesting. And I guess where's the inspiration coming from? So you mentioned that there's a good amount of Lithuanians working in the UK and, kind of, using that to the advantage to get some UK companies to open up, their European headquarters in Lithuania. But yeah, how did the government and I guess, the regulators and everyone, do you get inspired by the UK, by Asia? I mean, I know that Estonia is also a vibrant place for startups in general. What's inspiring everyone?
If we look where Lithuania ranks right now, it's ranked as number 4th fintech hub globally. So we can look at the top 3 and consider them as like future inspirations, and as well the countries that we're still looking into. So what's in front? So that's USA, UK, and Singapore. I believe this is like an ambition of building and proving that we can do certain things like ourselves. We sometimes have this like a small country phobia, and when it comes to startups, are we brave enough to say we are from Lithuania and we are creating those wonderful ideas? And we used to have this issue that many people would just say establish headquarters in UK, just not to say they are from Lithuania. I really hope, and we see from the market that it's more or less vanishing right now. But still, I would look into these countries as a follow-up examples. What's a good inspiration for the community?
Okay, super, thanks.
And I would like to add just that I know it's also important to understand who are these people. Well, usually, when you talk with people about the politicians, you have the face of, I don't know, the Trump, Biden, Obama type of leaders. Here in Lithuania, we are a young country. Our Minister of Economics and Innovations, she's 31, 32. Our Speaker of the Parliament, she is a European champion of chess, and she's 37.
Wow.
And the Prime Minister is also, she's also a great leader. She's 40 something. So we have 3 strong female figures in one of the most important governmental institutions. But also there are a couple of guys that are really contributing. So I think that the age and then the whole mentality where we were born and where we were educated. This we went through the changes, very dramatic, and I think that opened up possibilities. This knowing that you can do whatever, you can do everything. Yep. And knowing this, that you can do everything and the sky is the limit. Truly, in Lithuania, sky is the limit. There's no elite that would stop you. If you're great, if you have a great talent, if you put a lot of work, you can do whatever. I think that also inspires us to kind of push, and the government as well. And we have that success. And as Sarune said, yes, that's why we are 4th in global fintech rating.
Cool. Very super inspiring to know that, the leading figures of the country are young, but also, women as well. I think that's gonna definitely go a long way in putting, Lithuania as a top society in terms of, digital capabilities, digital infrastructure, and we'll kind of touch upon that in the second part of the episode. But Vytautas, some last comment from you before the break?
Short remarks. I would come back to what Zygimantas said before about that we are hungry. We understand as a small nation that we need to stand out somehow. We need to find our focus. And thinking about where it all started, probably nobody knows. Well, it's for the historians to dig and see how those processes panned out. But it boils down to having your niche. How do you compete with other countries around you? What are the good things here, and why would both the local companies do business instead of going somewhere abroad as startups, and also foreign companies come here? So a young and talented workforce and pool of talent here good regulation, good conditions for new businesses, and also some specific areas such as fintech, which helps us specialize.
Cool, thank you. I think the first half has really set the scene nicely to understand, what makes Lithuania so exciting, so vibrant, why there's so much energy and success. And we're going to jump to a quick pause and then come back. And I'd like to dig a bit deeper into what some of these innovative fintechs are and some of the success stories and, how this, work hard mindset and some of these successful fintechs is impacting, how digital Lithuania is becoming.
The FTS Group builds innovation ecosystems. We engage incumbents, investors, entrepreneurs, technology partners, and regulators to build trusted and connected fintech tribes around the world. We firmly believe that innovation in financial services will truly improve people's lives. Learn more on ftsgroup.eu.
Welcome back. So we're here for the second part of episode 77, a zoom in on the Lithuanian fintech ecosystem. So let's dive a bit into what some of these really cool fintechs actually look like, what they're trying to do, how they're trying to, make the lives of customers or businesses easier. So Sarune, what are some of the big fintechs that our listeners should know about coming out of Lithuania?
So current rising stars and most probably the most heard companies in the recent news would be Ondato. So this is a customer verification solution, and the guys keep successfully raising and helping for other fintechs and banks as well to improve their operations. Kevin, revolutionizing payments, as they say as well. We have a lot of local companies working in crowdfunding and crowdfunding that works both ways, both for lending for people and investing into the properties. So a couple of names like Profitus, Rongen, and as well Finbi, and then many others that are actually starting from building your personal finance portfolio to investing to running your daily banking operations are well set up. So in Lithuania, the biggest category, if we look into how the whole fintech map is developed, the main category lays in fintech, in payments and digital banking. And this is practically where 2/3 or nearly the half of the fintech companies come from due to the licensing. Other bits are still under development, and we look for attracting more companies from like big data, insurtech industries that would definitely add some great flavor to the companies that are currently there.
Yeah. And I guess in terms of what's the relationship between some of the fintechs you mentioned in the incumbent banks? Do you see more collaboration, or is there still kind of this, we view each other as competitors, or?
We did a survey recently and asked, how are these two collaborating? And what was really surprising, the year of 2020 was like the year of partnerships and collaborations. Of course, it wasn't just, for the 2020, some of the negotiations and partnerships are like a long-term projects, but there are more and more interaction points between one another, which is great, surprising. Some of the fintechs have 8 or more partnerships with other banks, for example. So that shows like an example that banks are also trying to open up and look for opportunities. This year was a great year to show that some of the processes need to be speeded up, needs to be improved. And this is where fintechs really gave like a helping hand for many other companies.
I agree with Sarune. I think that in at least in Lithuania's case, it's less about competing and being afraid from the bank's side, from the incumbent side, and more about understanding that the world is changing. And the banks are really keeping their ear to the ground and monitoring the process, what's new, what's coming, what are those new startups doing both in Lithuania and in the world, what are the trends, where are things moving. They understand that their business model is getting old and they need to innovate to survive and to compete. And so they even contribute to in certain cases to acceleration programs, or work with SMEs and fintechs in particular to help them, and maybe even find potential ways to collaborate in the future, work together and find some synergies.
I think I can tell a story here. So about probably 13 years ago, was it 2008 or 2009? Lithuanian government was fighting the crisis. So what they did, they realized that we have to switch from this low quality products manufacturing to a service-based economy and financial services and IT. So what happened that the government attracted Barclays to come here and open their one of their service centers. What happened is that first of all, they were able to pay a little bit more than the rest of the market. So they got the talents in and they trained them. Those talents then went to establish their own companies. Soon, the Danish, Swedish banks also opened their service centers here. What they did, they hired thousands of people. They trained them. They trained not only their skills, but the whole culture, the working culture, and all of that. And when they were saying that that's the way how to do, and we did the way they wanted, like with not so much of we welcomed all the trainings. After we got trained, we opened our own businesses. So basically, this banks, they nurtured the system. They kind of fueled the education system to prepare talents in IT sector. We have 36,000 of people working in IT sector. So the banks were heavily contributed to building the demand for people with skills in IT, and those people they got those trainings, they earned, and then they started their own. And I think this kind of the banks naturally contributed to this where we are here.
Cool. So we can thank Barclays.
And just to continue on the same note, so this is how this innovation center, ROCKIT, has evolved. So first, it was established by Barclays, and it was like a global initiative later taken further by one of the local banks, Swedbank. And when we talk about fintech community and we talk about a community that's working in the banking industry, we shouldn't think too far. This is like them and us in certain terms. We spoke about a couple of things. One of them is, Lithuania is not that big. So in the banks work our colleagues, work our friends, there work people that would like to learn more about innovations, and having a hub like ROCKIT, running numerous events, around 100 events plus per year. That's all about education, knowing what are the best practices and how can it work both ways. And also one of our goals of having this hub and for Swedbank, this is looking for interaction. So having startups close to the bank. And during the past year, we managed to make like 3 pilots with the bank that would actually work, and seeing, like testing it. Of course, it's hard to do something in a very big scale as it comes to group levels and a lot of organization. But, first steps are there. And for the more experimentation, the more we do not separate those two and, try to bring the knowledge together and bring them on the same page, the better for the whole ecosystem.
Super. Those are all, very inspiring examples and stories. I think there's so much to learn. What are some of the other kind of up and coming industries in Lithuania? Is there a lot of spaces around mobility, and I guess how does fintech work with and partner with other kind of digital and tech focused sectors?
Looking at the startups, so the biggest one in Lithuania, Tesonet, they're selling VPN service. Vinted is the marketplace for secondhand clothes that you own and you can sell. So these are the two top. I think that to understand I wouldn't say that, I don't know, maybe we can argue with Vytautas or Sarune, but I wouldn't say that there's a clear second player or the third player in the sector-wise. We have strong specialists in general in computer science. And there's a very interesting story. I don't know how much does it have, how much truth does it have, but there is this floating concept that 15 years ago, 20 years ago, with being a low-income country, teenagers, they had access to internet, but they didn't have access to money. So we're not able to acquire any licenses. So what they had to do, they had to learn their own ways how to get around. And with that, they learned a lot of different skills that you wouldn't learn at school, at university. And I'm not talking about bad hackers. No, I think it's more of just learning. And like if you need to get something, you will learn the way how to get it. And so when we talk with HR from foreign companies coming here in Lithuania, they are amazed that Lithuanian computer science people, they are very good at so many different languages and so many different skills. Whereas in the West, you would expect more focused skill set. So this diversity allows them to kind of work in different sectors interchangeably. Therefore, I wouldn't say that, okay, if fintech is the leading sector for startups, I'm not really sure which would be the second. We have strong AI community. We have a couple of really great blockchain startups. We have increasing interest in mobility and energy and all of that. So, Vytautas, maybe you can add on this.
Yes, I agree with you that there's no clear second sector, but there are definitely some strong players in several. I would also say AI and machine learning. Those several of those startups are strong and really growing. Also, gaming is traditionally a strong area, both for Lithuanian-born companies and the ones establishing presence here. Also, some even deep tech solutions, even in the laser space, semiconductors, even satellites, nano satellites in our case, and hardware solutions, and prop tech, as mentioned before, related to the fintech, but even in the consumer space, there are different areas that I wouldn't say they're booming, but they're definitely strong players in many verticals. Even marketing and digital advertising solutions and so on.
And just maybe to add on, what's like generally the rising topic right now, and all of the startups start thinking, and then innovation hubs. So this is the sustainability angle, and we look into the Nordic countries as an example. And currently, we run accelerator program based on bringing those innovations closer to big businesses. And that was pretty tough to find companies from Lithuania originally here that would say, yes, I know what I'm doing, and I have years of experience here. And this is where the Swedish companies, the Swiss companies, like really showed some great examples. And whichever industry you work, energy, mobility, right? So that will be the topic concerning you, if not now, so in the near future for sure.
Cool. Thanks for sharing those examples and stories. I really like that anecdote of teenagers and young adults having to kind of get by on their own and gaining, I don't know, it sounds almost like street smarts and instead of the boring book smarts, and being able to be innovative and versatile and think on your feet. So we talked a lot about the innovations, how Lithuania has moved from a kind of, I guess, manufacturing to a service and IT society and economy. What are some of how are the innovations being passed on to consumers in Lithuania? What are the changes, I guess, from the financial side of things consumers have experienced in the past, 5, 7, 10 years as a result of this fintech boom?
I think that we can here mention the frog leap effect. The banking system 30 years ago were non-existent at all. So banks that came here to Lithuania, they really saw a potential to start new services without going with something that was there for many years. We're very quick to get used to the paying everything with cards, and then when the boom started, this concept of cashless society is growing really fast. For example, some of the talents that like people that everybody knows, like our friends, they got fancy jobs in Revolut. They came here, they met their friends and influencers, those that knows a lot of other people, talked about the cards, gave a couple of free cards to everyone, and then everybody started using the Revolut. And it became a trend, and nobody wants to be a lagger. So we quickly went for these mobile banking solutions and others that are competing now here in Lithuania. So they're more and more common to find a place where cash is not accepted at all. I think remembering the corruption in the past and that we tackled it, I think we're kind of afraid of it now, and we're trying to wash it off and say, hey, we definitely have nothing in common with that anymore. Well, with probably some sad exceptions, but in general, the young people they do not use cash. You can pay with card everywhere, and now why card if you can pay with your watch or with NFC. So there are even people with chips already inserted somewhere that you can open the doors, and these stories are the common anecdotes around us.
So Zygimantas, from what you said, definitely there is this young generation that are very easy adopting new things, and even comparing how many challenger bank cards do I have, and that shows kind of a status quo in certain terms, and just another example, talking about the same Revolut, that was one of the best visible examples when it came to Lithuania. Here in our office, they had a couple of seats, and we just said, okay, let's do a fun marketing campaign. Let's give away cards for free for people. And there were people lining up nearly for hours just to get it for yourself, for your family, for my mom, dad, and then stuff like that. So that was crazy. Later, this idea split, in different parts of the world and became a massive campaign. But this is like being young, adopting. But if we look into how businesses adopt these technologies, here we talk about people on consumer-facing products. And COVID was one of the good examples in the beginning of last year, how many of those businesses who never, used online payments before, they were operating in the markets and in some local shops, that wasn't there. There wasn't a need. And now sometimes we joke that all of the businesses in Lithuania are digital businesses. So that's first, right? So this is the need of becoming visible in different conditions. And as well, the other example, when we look into, for example, the same crowdfunding campaigns and platforms, banks couldn't issue as many loans as the need was in the market, and this is why, like, the special aid supports by our government. Most of the packages were delivered through those platforms. That meant people needed to learn about them, to understand how it works, and become users themselves that are still continue using it after what was the initial goal for using it. So there are different ways of adopting it, but I believe all of us can agree that adoption and all of those wonderful fintechs and other startups, they're just growing their clientele. It's not going anywhere less, just growing, understanding your user more, and from the startup perspective, understanding what your user needs and how to provide it to him in the best possible ways, and finding this mutual understanding is what works best.
I will also add that these are, of course, great thoughts that I definitely agree with. But a little bit of a contrarian perspective, talking about consumers. We are a small country, less than 3 million. And in the absolute majority of the cases, Lithuania as a market, it's either a test bed where the companies test their solutions and pilot, and then go to bigger markets. We are not France, we're not Germany, we're not Spain or Italy in terms of the number of potential users. We will never be like this, and realistically speaking, we're a good market to test, good market to employ talented and young and hungry people. And also the regulatory environment and the ease of doing business is great. But Lithuania is never going to be attractive because it has a big or significant consumer number of consumers. So we're realistic, and I think the majority of startups and scale-ups are realistic about that as well. But it's a great place to start when thinking about the European Union market overall.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. So yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about all the kind of different startups in Lithuania, how COVID has kind of accelerated businesses across the country to become digital first. What makes Lithuania so unique, and I guess being the fourth most innovative, forward-thinking fintech ecosystems in the world. What advice would you give to other ecosystems, not just in Europe, but also in Africa, Asia, Latin America, North America as well? What's your piece of advice?
I can start so that my colleagues have a couple of minutes for thinking. I would start with bringing different stakeholders together, be it ecosystem players, incumbent players, challengers, and also, of course, different stakeholders, be it regulators or users and consumers and so on, and investigating what are the most the biggest problems, the most burning issues that we have to solve. In different countries, it might be different things. It might be old infrastructure, or I don't know, a lot of people that don't have access to banking, or on the contrary, very strong incumbent players that don't want competition. I'm now inventing, but just agreeing that we want to come forward, which are the biggest obstacles to overcome, and what is our plan to bring our country ahead and to develop those solutions. I think this is a good place to start, and not being afraid to experiment. Of course, fintech is a sensitive area, and Lithuania being having the number one of licenses or electronic money institution licenses, let's say, it doesn't mean that the rules are weak or slacking or cutting the corners. Definitely no. They're very strong anti-money laundering and counter-terrorist financing regulations. But I think the Lithuanian example can show that even adhering to strict regulations, you can streamline the processes and have very clear and accessible rules that you can play by and still win and develop.
Okay, great, thank you, Sarune. What's your advice?
I'm thinking both from like governmental perspective and startups perspective, like do things step by step. Have an ambition, but don't expect that everything will be created overnight. So even here we speak about Lithuanian case study, and we speak how it was developed with 6 years or so. But everything needs careful planning, and like how do startups do things, right? They create, they test, and then they learn what works, what doesn't work. They try to understand. So this is how the whole process as well in Lithuania is operating, right? You create something, you see how the community adopts, and you continue just improving and understanding what you are actually building. From other things, I believe that the leadership and really have active voices from both sides, right, really matter. And here in Lithuania, as Zygimantas was naming, the names of the leaders, but of course we have leaders and those real actual people. Not we're talking about Ministry of Finance, but we're speaking of particular persons. We're not just speaking National Bank. We know the names and faces, and this is encouraging those leaders to speak up, know who they are, and maybe one of the final ones is build a community of same-minded people. It really grows. It helps to grow for one another. This is how you can encourage partnerships, exchange know-how, and this is what is successfully happening in Lithuania and helping for starting ones and for the newcomers to the country to organize themselves in the ecosystem.
Super, thank you.
So I think that what I would like to what would be the advice for startups to understand that the regulator is not there to punish, or the government is not there to be a bad for you and to tax you. Probably their goal is to create favorable conditions for you to pay taxes that could be used for common good. Yep. So if you know that, if you understand that, you will come to them with a different perception. You wouldn't attack them. You would come there with an advice and with the willingness to help. Because sometimes the government, they do not always know everything. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they need you to help them to figure this one out. Yeah. And as for the people from the governments all across the world, I would like to wish to be always open. Do not ever think that you already know everything, and not all the businesses came here to steal from you. Some are coming there with an open heart and willingness to help. So I remember this amazing story also. Probably 3 years ago, the startup division organized a fintech mission of more than 50 plus delegates from all across the world. They came to Lithuania to understand the fintech scene. And I was giving a presentation, and there was a founder of EA Sports, Jeff Burton, and he asked the question, at the end of the QA session, do you know, and he tried to pronounce the Minister of Economics, do you know this person? And my answer was, yes, I have him on my Facebook, as well as, I can, as well as 10 other people in the parliament and so on. And I'm not the kind of special person. Like, we all know those people by heart. We know those people, face to face. And it's not, because of belonging to some secret society or whatever. We are just generally approachable people that meet in various events and tech conferences. And for those people that are listening, I would like to invite you to Lithuania, to fintech conferences, to events, to come visit. You can just knock on the doors of Sarune's office in ROCKIT, and I know that you have a great day, a lot of new acquaintanceships, and then you will meet a lot of great people. So just come by and see. It's easy to approach, and then for people that are listening, be open, and everything will be fine.
Great, thank you. I mean, I definitely think after the audience listens to this, there'll be a lot of inquiries on how to get to Lithuania and learn. And I think, from the some of the advice around bringing all the different players together, don't be afraid to experiment, but also acknowledging that things need to be done step by step. Building a community and not being afraid of the government and the regulators, and really trying to have that open dialogue. I'd like to thank all of you so much. That's been super interesting and really, really inspiring. I think everyone's now 100% going to have Lithuania on their radar in terms of looking to what's happening from an innovation perspective, but also, how can we learn from some of these companies, and, how can we become involved in whatever capacity they wish. So it'd be great if you could let our audience know how to find out more about you and your companies. Sarune, do you want to kick off?
Sure. Any activities or more insights about the fintech community could be found on rockitvilnius.com or our social media. This is a perfect chance where you can see the companies in action, right? Presenting, sharing the ideas, joining accelerator programs or stuff like that. And if interested to connect, so I believe you can connect me on LinkedIn. You'll find the name and surname in the descriptions. So more than happy to chat with you further.
Thank you. And Zygimantas?
Yeah, so you can also find me on LinkedIn. And I try to position myself as a person that if I don't know the answer, I probably will know who will know. So at least I'll try to connect. And if you're interested to learn about how we can extend the batteries and then increase the EV charging, the whole ecosystem, you can also reach out to me, because we are building something really interesting with Ioon Technologies.
Super, thank you. And lastly, Vytautas.
All events and initiatives and other things related to the Lithuanian ecosystem, you can find on the Startup Division website or on social media, Facebook and LinkedIn primarily. Also, of course, you can add me on LinkedIn, and also you can check out Contribee.com, which is a solution to monetize the audiences for creators, charities, nonprofits, and so on.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone again. It's been an awesome session, and thank you to our listeners, and stay tuned for episode 78 coming up next on Breaking Banks Europe. Thanks everyone.
Thanks for listening to Breaking Banks Europe, a Provoke Media podcast in cooperation with FinTech Stage. Don't forget to tweet us out, shout out, or post to the team at Breaking Banks EU on Twitter. If there's something or someone you'd like to hear on our cast, let us know. See you next week on Breaking Banks Europe.